Dean, I don't know if you wanted to say anything as a quick introduction before we otherwise kick off from our end.
Sorry, excuse me. No, excuse me. As soon as I try to speak, it doesn't work. No, I think we're here to support the conversation as needed. We've got obviously this is the second go around for Canadian Business College, so we learned a little bit on the first time through the first students going through the application process and so on. So obviously we're here to sort of facilitate as a partner and let you you drive the ship, Matt.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Dean and Patrick. Glad to have you on here. And just to round out the introductions, we've got John, one of our students joining us today. Thanks so much, John Cole, for being on the call as well. These webinars are great when they have, the genuine perspective from a student who's been there, done it, and talking about their experience. And we've got Juan Carlos as well, joining us from Miami. Thanks, Juan Carlos is the Dean of Academic Delivery, Academic Programs. So we're really excited. So I'm just going to get started. So apologies, I'm actually, as I mentioned, in South Africa, traveling at the moment for work, and be in Berlin for a big conference tomorrow. And I wasn't expecting to do this webinar, but the VP who does this webinar is actually quite ill. So I volunteered to just jump in and support that. So I think now we've given a few minutes grace, so we're going to just get started. And I want to start off by saying we love this collaboration with Canadian Business College. It's truly amazing because students get an opportunity to pathway into a University of East London executive MBA at a scholarship rate, an incredibly low cost rate. Most of our students don't require any form of financing because it is an amazing rate, which we'll talk a little bit more about. But even with that extremely low scholarship rate, we give students 1 or even 2 years to pay. We have provincial loans from Canadian provinces approved for students. So if finances even then are a challenge, we have provincial loans available. And there's also Canadian government-backed retirement fund loans using your own retirement funds. So it's so amazing to have alumni and students from Canadian Business College able to access these great programs without also needing a bachelor's degree, unlike any other university within Canada. Our programs, of course, you can enter an executive MBA with a bachelor's degree, but the unique part is you can enter through professional management experience. We'll get into a bit more detail, but that's a little bit of background as to why we have this amazing collaboration and this amazing opportunity that opens up really MBAs to just so many more people. So without further ado, this is designed to be a 30-minute presentation. So I'm going to go through it fairly rapidly. We're going to hear a little bit from John and a little bit from Juan Carlos, but don't stress in the sense that it's a lot of information to take in. We're going to follow up and send you this entire presentation. You can read it in detail. So really, I'm just going to go through fairly quickly on pointing out some of the key highlights. So for example, the vision here, there's a lot of student testimonials and student experiences that you'll see, but the most important thing here is the vision. Very similar to Canadian Business College as an education institution, our vision is similarly aligned, that it's really about genuine career impact for students. We're not about pure research and publishing in academic journals. We're about teaching and learning that helps students get a job, get a promotion, get a pay rise. So that means practical career relevant skills that genuinely will help in that career progression. And you'll see that that then translates into everything we do. Everything we do is about return on investment and career progression. There's a lot of stats here. Again, you can read this in your own time, but this is research from various governments, private bodies, US Bureau of Labor, that talks about the impact financially on an MBA. A lot of people do an MBA for different reasons. They really want that learning and professional development. It's on their bucket list. Maybe they want to be a role model for their kids. We've heard so many different reasons why people think, an MBA is going to really help their self-esteem and morale and all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, really the most tangible benefit is it is dollars and cents at the end. You invest thousands of dollars into an MBA, and you get a very, very high return on investment from that program. So a little bit about quick overview on the structure. This is a 100% online flexible MBA that comprises of 6 classes, 5 core subjects, and 1 industry applied project. You're going through each of these classes, which is really amazing, one at a time. Unlike a traditional institution where often they have many more classes and often you have simultaneous classes, it's hard to juggle work and your MBA. Here you have a short class, so you'll spend 8 weeks doing business strategy. You finish it, you hand in your assignments, you move on, you have a short break, you move on to the next class. So you're never worrying about, oh, I've got 3 classes and all my assignments are due in the same week. You do 1 class at a time, manage very easily and flexibly while you're doing your full-time work. 100% online, tailored to your job and career, which we'll talk a little bit more in a moment. And something that I think everyone can agree on that they would love is that there's no exams in any of our degrees. They're applied-based learning. If anyone wants to know the history and reason why we have no exams, we've written white papers on this. We get lots of press, lots of awards. We just won another prestigious MBA award last week. And that's because the reason that university has MBAs has really nothing to do with quality of education. It's got to do with during the times of the Industrial Revolution and the mass expansion of student numbers, and they really had to have just an efficient model of pushing people through a system. It had nothing to do with quality learning outcomes. But as I say, anyone that's interested, we can send you papers and research and all sorts of things. Good news is there's no exams. It's all applied projects as your formal assessments. So what do we mean by being the most career relevant? What does that actually mean? It's very easy to say things like that, but what do we truly mean? Firstly, what we mean is to be the best. You learn from the best people in the world. You will learn from hundreds of world leaders in this online curriculum that are teaching that we've built our curriculum with. Founders of Atari, chairman of KPMG, heads of the CIA, from Canadian prime ministers to Malaysian prime ministers, Nobel Prize winners, celebrities, the most successful and inspiring people in the world. So we've all heard that kind of stereotype of people going to an academic university and learning from someone who maybe knows the textbook, but they've never even worked in the real world of what they're teaching. We want the combination of academics. Of course, we have academics and professors and PhDs that are grading papers and supporting you, but the curriculum is also built with real world leaders that are teaching you all the way through. And you're just going to learn with this amazing quality production of documentary quality production, learning from inspiring people all the way through your program. The second element is that the assignments are tailored assignments to your career and your industry. So even though you have to take those set 6 classes, let's take marketing strategy just as an area of study. Now, if you go to Harvard University, there's nothing wrong with Harvard University. We have global leaders in our global leaders faculty from Harvard University. So nothing wrong with the institution, but you will be doing their MBA. You go to University of Toronto, nothing wrong with UT, but you'll be doing their MBA. So someone could be working at Bank of Montreal and they're at University of Toronto and they're told they need to do some case study on an oil company that did something 20 years ago. So not really very practical and very relevant for someone who's currently working at Bank of Montreal. If you're a manager at Bank of Montreal, you would be looking at a strategic marketing project for your marketing class on a strategic project of Bank of Montreal, whatever that might be. Maybe they want to expand into Mexico. Maybe they're thinking about how can we use AI to more effectively market to new customers. But whatever the strategy is, you're integrating the MBA with strategic projects of the business. This is something that really helps with that rapid career progression because you're not off doing some program that no one even knows about. You're constantly presenting back into your company and talking to your company about, hey, I've been working on this executive MBA and I know this was a challenge in our business and I've done world's best research, looking at world's best practice, and here's some recommendations. And the company's like, wow, this is amazing. How did you come up with this stuff? And it's like, well, I've just spent, months and months going through my MBA. So there's videos here. I'll just show you for a second what it looks like, but I'm not going to play it because it goes for minutes. But throughout this presentation, there's great videos. So I'd encourage everyone to look at these because you'll hear from students and you'll also hear from industry experts on this applied learning model.
Sometimes people come out of universities and they don't quite have a number of practical skills that really matter.
So I'm just going to pause there for a moment, and I would love to ask John to jump in and ask John a couple of questions. One, John, what was it about the University of East London, Ducere MBA structure that attracted you in terms of its career relevance versus a more traditional program?
Being everything online really sort of helped me. I live quite close to East London, so at the University of East London kind of had that appeal for me as well. And the research I did into Ducere, really showed the global aspect of it. So I'm going to learn more than just what's on my doorstep. I'm going to learn more from people around the world. But the pure online, the structure, working with lecturers from all across the globe really was a plus for me.
Excellent. Oh, thanks for that. And we hear that a lot. One of the great things is that students are studying 100% online. However, you also have a network from all over the world. We have Canadian students, we have Canadian alumni, we have students in Paris, in Johannesburg, in Sydney, and you actually come together, even though it's an online program, you get together and graduate on campus in East London, which is amazing. Cap and gown on stage, getting that piece of paper. So you're going to meet these students that you've made friends with all along the way, and academics and team members. So that's a really wonderful experience. Now, it's not mandatory. You're not mandated to go and fly to the UK for personal reasons. Maybe you've got very young children, whatever, you can't get the time off. But most students do go, and it's an incredible experience if that study of 12 months, getting your MBA, culminates in meeting the team and spending time and having that cultural experience as well, which leads me to another question, John, of the support. It is an online program. You're juggling multiple things. You're working. So how do you find the support? I mean, at the end of the day, you can get online and do your own thing, but there's always times where things come up. You need that bit of help. How do you find the support from academics and the student support team?
The support was great. The student support team, if there's any questions we had about the systems or any problems, was very responsive. All of the lecturers are very responsive, even though the time zones were different. So you had to take that into account. So whilst it might be 9 a.m. in the UK, it was probably midnight in Australia. So we had to be aware of time zones. But the support was superb. Response to emails was timely. Any questions that we had was great. And I'm not just saying that because Juan Carlos was one of my lecturers on marketing and communication. But it was, yeah, the support was there all the way through. So I had no issues at all. If I had any questions, they were answered very well and very timely.
Oh, brilliant. Thank you so much, John. And thanks so much for being on the call. I did mention that we normally try to keep this to 30 minutes, but we stay on and do a Q&A. So often there's some questions for me, questions for John as a student, question for Juan Carlos as an academic. So feel free to just think about any questions that you have for John, and we can ask those questions towards the end. And then Juan Carlos, I'd love you to jump in at the moment before I go on to some of the more technical parts of enrolling, etc. But just to talk about the learning experience, the learning process, how you manage with students that are in different time zones. Of course, John is in the UK. Canadian business student graduates are going to be in Canada. You have students from Africa to Asia. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your thoughts around the learning journey.
Of course. So when it comes to our classrooms, Matt, you're 100% right that we have students from all around the globe, which is fantastic for the learning experience of the students, and it bonds everybody together. But of course, it does create some challenges for logistics of the class. I've had classes before where there have been students on 4 continents, which was fun and new. And what that means, of course, is that not everybody's going to be able to participate at the exact same time. But we still do our very best to maximize the collaboration you do with your classmates. So the first thing you're going to see is that you're going to see a variance in live sessions. So that you should expect some of them to be in a time zone that's friendly to you, regardless of where you are in the world. So we have academics that are located all over the world, just like our students, and they do live sessions that will cater towards each individual student's time zone at least once or twice throughout the semester. Secondly, there are recordings of absolutely everything. Any live session that's happened in the class, whether it's a webinar, whether it's a lecture, just a drop-in session that we do for students to have their questions answered, that's all recorded. You could watch it anytime. Sometimes we have students who watch it multiple times. That is recommended. We also gather to get students to communicate asynchronously through Canvas. And what that allows is you can be chatting with your classmates about a topic that was discussed in lecture that day or something relevant to the course, and you type away, you go to sleep, you wake up, and your classmates have answered you, and you can keep that conversation going. The technology really gives us the opportunity to have a classroom that, even though everyone is technically doing it at a slightly different time, it has that feeling that everybody is still in a virtual classroom together and doing their bit to grow and learn together.
Awesome. Thanks, Juan Carlos. And often, of course, when you're in the program, there's more academic questions. And especially we have many, many students I mentioned that have entry based on management experience. They don't have a strong academic background. So we already plan and assume that. If you do have a bachelor's degree, great. But if you don't, we have a full week's orientation where we talk about how to use the learning system online, how to research, how to prepare for an assessment, how to reference. And even then, I mean, it's all laid out really clearly, but even then, you know, you still can go to your academic and say, I just wanted to make sure, am I meant to do it this way or am I meant to do it that way? Student support team is so helpful and so responsive with study tips and videos. And, you know, we set up students for success. We have over a 95% graduation rate for this University of East London Executive MBA. That is literally an unheard of graduation rate, and it's because of the level of support. I don't know, Dean, it'd be interesting to know what the average Canadian graduation rate is for universities across the country. It's one thing that I'd like to look at one day, but I can tell you in the US, where we're based, our headquarters is in the US, the average university graduation rate is 45%. So just to put that 95% in perspective, of course, there's always going to be something that comes up, emergencies, etc. So, you know, you can never really expect 100%, but 95% we're especially proud of, which means anyone who really has that motivation and desire, we will support them to get through the program. So just moving on,
Sometimes
again, a couple of questions that you might have for Juan Carlos on the academic side. Please feel free to throw that in the chat and ask any questions. The learning management system itself is very intuitive and very easy to use. It is the fastest growing learning management system on the planet. Pretty cool. You can access it on a tablet, on a phone. It's audio enabled, computer, and 24/7. So yes, there might be a scheduled live lecture that happens to be at 2 a.m. your time. You are absolutely not expected. There's no mandatory attendance. You just log in maybe on the weekend and watch that lecture when it suits you. So there are lots of opportunities to engage live, but at the end of the day, you work around your job and you make sure it's flexible and works around your requirements. Is this recognized? This is recognized by industry. From a corporate perspective, we have students and alumni from everyone from Disney to PwC to Apple, Accenture, UN. You can see the logos there. That's just some of the logos. We have so many companies where we have students from all over the world. And it makes sense because it's such an industry integrated, career focused program that this is something that companies like, employers appreciate. In a moment, I'll tell you a little bit more about the credibility of the University of East London for anyone who doesn't know about that. So just on the Ducere side, who we are, We're US based. We win awards from all over the world. We've won UK awards. We've been recognized by US Congress, by state of California. We've been on TV news because we genuinely believe that formal accredited education is important, great. But we also believe that pure textbook learning and academic learning just to get the piece of paper is not really worth it and not worth spending the money on. We believe it needs to be a combination of recognized award-based degrees that actually provide you with tangible skills. So that's on the Ducere side. Who's the University of East London? For those that don't know, it's a British public accredited university. So it's a public university from the UK. They've been around from the 1800s. They're ranked in the top 5% of universities in the world. Even better than that, they literally just got listed as the #1 university in the UK for 2025 for teaching and quality. So for this year's results, for the rankings that they do for the following year, for 2025. So 2025, #1 university in the UK for teaching and quality. And that's because they're a student-centric university. They put students first. They're a champion of diversity and equity. So we love the collaboration, the work we do with University of East London. You will officially get your executive MBA from the University of East London. They are formally recognized by the Canadian government, which is why you can even get Canadian government loans. Even though it's not a Canadian institution, you can still get government loans. You still have approval by the government to use retirement funds for these programs. Just going forward there. So a bit more on accreditations and memberships you can read in your own time. Again, a little bit of investment details. So a little bit more specifics. I did mention that you can enter with a bachelor's degree. And as long as you've got 3 years of professional experience with a bachelor's degree, you can't be 21, say, hey, I just got my piece of paper. I want to do an executive MBA. Doesn't really work that way. You need to have a few years of experience. But you can either have a bachelor's degree or with no academic background, you can have 5 years of management experience as your entry. So that means you have no prerequisite education. You do not have to complete a bachelor's degree. You've already studied with Canadian Business College. You have 5 years management experience. You go straight in to a 12-month online MBA. In 12 months, you'll be graduating. So that's really exciting. The tuition fees, these are in pounds. So in pounds, it's 12,150 pounds. This is in US dollars, I believe, but I don't check the exchange rate very often, but I believe it's around 20,000 Canadian dollars or 15,000 US dollars is the scholarship rate. Normally 24,000 US dollars. The scholarship rate for all graduates and alumni with Canadian Business College is $15,160. Now, you can do the program over 1 year and pay that over 1 year. You can do it over 2 years and pay it over 2 years. So you're paying a very small amount over 2 years potentially. You do have access to financing and loans. I personally do not know all the fees that executive MBA university costs are in Canada. But I've spoken to alumni in Canada who have said to me they did the research on executive MBAs that are typically closer to 100,000 Canadian dollars. So you are getting a world-class public university, prestigious, award-winning for really a fraction of what it would cost. And you have the added bonus of the eligibility even without having a bachelor's degree. This has nothing to do with the degree whatsoever. But as I said, I'm sitting here in South Africa right now. I came from Tanzania a few days ago. This is something we're clearly passionate about. We are a social enterprise. So funding from our university degrees goes into our philanthropy that's delivered programs across the entire African continent. So it's just kind of nice to know that, you know, these degrees aren't just going to shareholders to buy fancy cars or whatever, that the money is actually going to a good cause and helping students. It's impacted on around 800,000 students so far across the across the African continent. We help asylum seekers. We help students in the remote, poorest parts of the world. So that's pretty cool too. So can you see yourself as an MBA candidate? The last thing I just want to bring up before there's a little bit more on investment. You can look at that in your own time. The last thing I just wanted to bring up here, please take a copy of this. This is Caroline's details. She's the one who was quite ill today, so couldn't be presenting, but please book an appointment with her. That's her phone number, email address. You can scan the QR code and go straight to a booking scheduling, and she will meet with you one-on-one to really understand your background, your career goals. We also have, by the way, other programs aside from the University of East London MBA. So for whatever reason, maybe affordability, we have lower cost options. We have options where the MBA experience is only 3 years required, not 5 years required. So University of East London is certainly the most prestigious, but just keep in mind, don't think, oh, I don't know if I qualify for that, so forget it. I would encourage you, it's free. Have a conversation, have a consultation, tell Caroline your personal situation, and then we will, of course, do our best to help you with that dream of a degree. So I can see, John, you put in there already that your entry was based on your management experience. Maybe you just want to mention very quickly how you went about that. How did you demonstrate that experience? What sort of experience you had to be able to do that?
Yes, Matt. My experience is across a few different industries. So I sort of come into management via health club management, looking after various health clubs across the southeast of the UK. I then moved across into fitness retail management. I used to be the UK South commercial sales manager, and I used to look after their London store, which was their highest performing store in the UK. So that gave me 7 years management experience there alone. And then I moved across into security operations, and I was the security operations and contract manager for a £1 billion a year department store in the UK, managing a team of over 100. Again, opened my eyes a lot with diversity and inclusion because it was a very mixed team. So yeah, that's what qualified me to be able to do the executive MBA.
Amazing. Thanks, John. It sounds like maybe you were even overqualified with that many years of management experience, but just kidding. But you do require only 5 years, which obviously you had far more experience in. There's no kind of formal assessment of that. We go off your resume. We do get a letter of reference. So as long as we can see the LinkedIn profile, the resume can justify that you have the 5 years, less for some of our other programs, minimum of 3 for some other programs, but 5 years for University of East London. Some people get a little bit stuck on the quote management. They think they have to have had manager in their title. It's the skill set. So maybe you were a team leader at BlackBerry. Maybe you were a quote supervisor. All of those things in our world are similar traits of having the characteristics of management level, professional level. So that's how we deal with the professional development. I'm just quickly looking at the chat, and as I'm reading a couple of questions there, please feel free to throw in any questions to the chat. And please also remember that you can follow up with any one-on-one questions with Caroline afterwards, because some people prefer to ask questions directly rather than in a group setting. So how long will it take reading a question to complete the registration after submitting all the documents? So you'll typically get a letter of approval, or if there's something missing, maybe you didn't include your identification or something, within 5 days. You will not be waiting weeks. You will not be waiting months. There is also no cost to apply. There is zero registration, zero cost to apply. So kind of like, honestly, in our view, it's like, why not have a consultation? Why not apply, see if you qualify? But the answer is it'll take you about 15 minutes to do the application online. It's not a very long process. And within a few days, you'll hear back either if something's missing or if you have a letter of acceptance. There's also in the chat, Canadian Business College direct contact is Megan Williams. So I don't know if everyone can just go into the chat there, but you can see it there. There's an email address. We'll follow up with the email following this with the presentation. We'll also include Caroline's contact details from the Ducere side, and Megan's contact details with the phone number and email. So if you've got any questions, please go straight to Canadian Business College, ask Caroline whatever you feel is best for you. And then there's no other questions at the moment. So is there any other questions? Anything else that anyone wants to ask? Any famous last words? Otherwise, we would love to see you all booking that appointment or following up. And hopefully we see you all next year as students and joining the class, and very soon graduating with that cap and gown in the UK. So doesn't look like there's any more questions there, but a huge thanks to you, John. Thank you for jumping on the call. We really appreciate that. Juan Carlos, always great to hear from you on the academic side. And Patrick and Dean, of course, thanks for putting this together. Thanks to Megan for all the support in account management. And we would be thrilled to have as many of you as possible joining. I'm sure there might be some technical questions about how the Canadian loans work and things like that. Feel free, as I say, no cost, jump on a call, ask those questions, and we're here to help you. So